If you are at or near retirement and plan on one day living off of an income portfolio that does include covered call ETFs, this video is for you. This is a full breakdown on covered call ETF investing, and we're going to showcase examples of the strategy in real time and backtest showcasing how they performed against the underlying ETF during down markets and sideways markets. Now, if you're new here, my name is Spencer, and I love talking about passive income investing and ETFs. I'm currently building my own dividend snowball that will one day allow me to retire carefree and live off of my dividend income. Now, I'm currently making over $5,000 annually in passive income, and that number is continuing to grow. So if you learned something from this video, or if you're interested in following my journey, don't forget to like the video and to subscribe. Now we're going to get into everything covered call ETFs so you know exactly where your money's going. I want to address some of the criticism around the ETF community. As you guys can see from Apollo.com, there are now more ETFs than publicly listed companies for the first time in history. But there is a very simple explanation to this. Every publicly listed company has the ability to have multiple ETFs created around it. For instance, a stock like Tesla. There's only one Tesla stock, but the ETFs could include a 2x leveraged bull, a 3x leveraged bull, a 2x bear, a 3x bear, and of course, different options overlays like a covered call strategy. Now, this isn't necessarily bad in terms of ETFs, but it does showcase that you as an investor have to understand the pros and cons. There's also an issue with something called NAV erosion, which we're going to showcase in an example in just a moment, that is so important for investors, whether you're retired or planning on retiring anytime, you have to understand. Now, this is an example of NAV erosion. We're looking at IWM versus Defiance's income ETF, IWMY. And I'm utilizing the Russell 2000 because it's a really interesting example for this scenario. What we can see here is that the Russell 2000 is up 88.51% since November 9th of 2023. In that same time period, an ETF that focuses on covered calls to produce income, IWMY, is up 47.87%. And you may look at this and go, that's not that bad. You're sacrificing a lot of growth for the income, which is one of the main criticisms of covered call ETFs. But when we flip off total return and go to just price change, you can see a vast difference. We see IWM still up 82% because it does not produce a lot of income versus IWMY, where they have consistently lost value over time. And this is an example of NAV erosion. Now, my problem with this is IWMY yields over 30%, and an asset like the Russell 2000 genuinely can only create usually 10 to 12% in returns every year. And that's an average over the last, say, 30 years. So what's important to note is most years, the Russell 2000 will not produce 30% in returns. And thus, even with the options overlay with IWMY, you will always be paying out too much in income to sustain the NAV, the net asset value. And thus your initial capital, the money that you've invested into this ETF, will erode over time. And unfortunately, the chart is very, very ugly. One thing that is important to note though, if we zoom in 1 year, you may say, well, the Russell 2000 hasn't been doing that bad. It's actually doing decent for 2026, but it's still 21% different than the actual return of IWM. And if we go to total return, yes, it jumps up to only 15%, but that is factoring in those distributions, not just the price point. So NAV erosion is a major factor, and with interest rate cuts happening early on in 2026 and late 2025, we did see a bump in the Russell 2000's performance. Now, I'm not bashing IWMY at all. This fund may serve a purpose for specific investors, but I want to showcase the downside of NAV erosion and factor in why a lot of investors steer clear of covered call ETFs. And that's only one reason. There's more we're going to touch on right now. For the example in this video, I'm going to showcase Nasdaq ETFs. Starting off, we have QQQ, which is the benchmark, the Nasdaq 100 ETF. Then we have QQQI, a NEOS ETF that boasts a high yield. Then we have JEPQ, which usually underperforms, but does have some pros in terms of safety. We have QYLD, which is probably the villain of this group. And a lot of these original Global X ETFs, the QYLD, RYLD, XYLD, these were some of the first covered call ETFs. Now, To give them credit, it was really cool that they created these ETFs, but the structure and how they produce income is old-fashioned, outdated, and not as efficient as some of the new ways covered call ETFs are producing income. And last but definitely not least, we have GPIQ. This is a Goldman Sachs ETF that boasts some growth and a smaller yield. Now, I'm using stock analysis to break all of these down, and the performance speaks for itself. None of these funds match QQQ's performance, and this is part of the problem with the covered call structure. So we're going to be very honest here. You will almost never outperform the underlying ETF without employing a different option structure to a covered call ETF or some sort of leverage. Now, leverage can be an amazing tool, but if you're more risk off, say you're in retirement and you don't have as much money as you'd like to, so you don't want to risk it in case we do see a market pullback, that does make a lot of sense. Now, these funds specifically, QQQ is up 75.5%. GPIQ comes in second place, up just over 69%. We have QQQI up just under 61%. We have JEPQ up 52.81%. And last but not least, we have QYLD, again, the villain of this video, up a mere 37.67%. When we scroll down, these numbers right here may surprise you. We have the stock price or the ETF price, the percent change on the day, but here's an important factor, the assets, i.e. how much money is in each of these ETFs. Starting off, we have QQQ with $480 billion. Then we have QQQI with $12 billion, JEPQ at $39 billion, QYLD at $8 billion, and GPIQ at $4.62 billion. The expense ratios do vary, with the most expensive being Neos's QQQI and the cheapest being QQQ by Invesco. It's the benchmark and they're not using an options overlay. So if you're relatively new to ETFs, there's growth and there's income. And when it comes to the growth side, they simply are shaping the ETF, buying and selling depending on what the underlying benchmark is doing. When it comes to income, they're riding covered calls. It is a consistent, actively managed fund where they have to go in and do the work. And that's why it costs more. And that's pretty typical across the board. One of the more important parts of this video will be the discussion right now around the yield. Starting off, QQQ yields 0.38%, QQQI 13.44%, JEPQ 9.97%, QYLD 11.35%, and GPIQ 9.32%. Now, if you're looking at just the yields, and some investors will do this, they will say, I want the highest yield possible. So they'll buy QQQI by Neos and they'll buy QYLD. Both of these have the highest yield, but remember when we scroll up, these are not the top performers. QYLD, in fact, is the worst performer by a pretty substantial margin. Neos is always good. I like Neos. I am a fan. But a lot of investors will look at this and go, wow, covered call investing is terrible. I bought the highest yielders and my performance is way under what the Nasdaq 100 has been doing. Covered calls are a scam. And that's because they don't fully understand the structure of these funds and how they are meant to work. So now we're going to give a brief overview of each of these and we'll break down the structure, starting off with QYLD, which again is that covered call ETF villain. Different structures give different outcomes. And again, I'm going to showcase a downturn in the market where we'll see exactly how these perform in comparison to the growth fund QQQ, but let's give an overview of how these work. Starting off with QYLD. I have my cheat sheet here and it's going to hold the Nasdaq 100 and they sell at the money covered calls on 100% of the portfolio every single month. And when people talk about how much of a portfolio is covered, what they mean by that is how much of the portfolio are they using for the options. And there's pros and cons to using a lot. If you use a lot of the portfolio, you're able to generate more premium and thus get more income. If you use less of the portfolio for coverage, you're getting less of a distribution. They're not yielding as much because you're not creating as many options. There's not as many contracts in play, which is how you get paid. But the bright side or the downside, depending on the movement of the underlying ETF, is if the market goes up and your portfolio is fully covered, you will not see that rise in price. You will still get the same distribution, the same amount of yield, but you will not see the growth of the asset. And vice versa, if you say have a portfolio that's 50% covered. For instance, GPIQ is typically around 50% covered. So they have a lower yield, but when the markets are ripping or going up substantially, they're able to get you better returns. They're still paying out that 9% dividend, but you're also getting more growth. And that's why QYLD has done so terribly. That truly is it. The structure would be perfect in a market where the QQQ or the Nasdaq 100 didn't go up at all. It just traded sideways. You could get good premium, you would get a high yield, and it would be consistent. But anytime the Nasdaq 100 goes up, it leads to QYLD underperforming. JEPQ doesn't have any return of capital, and that's something I forgot to mention about QYLD. It also doesn't have return of capital, which is a utilization of 1256 contracts, and basically they're more tax friendly. So if you're investing or retiring out of just a normal brokerage, having higher return of capital can really help you with your tax bill at the end of the year. Neither of these funds employ those strategies and thus don't get the benefit. Something like QQQI does, but we'll touch on that. Now, JEPQ, one of the most popular funds on this list, near 40 billion in AUM, and for good reason. It is a consistent dividend payer, and it has more protection to the downside. But the cost of that is the upside potential, right? And that is why JEPQ is only up 52% when QQQ is up over 75%. So you're taking each piece, you're taking the risk, you're taking the reward, and combining them, and JEPQ has less risk and less reward. But on top of that, there is something within the structure of JEPQ that does give it a different kind of risk, a credit risk, because they're going to utilize ELNs. And ELNs are going to bundle the Nasdaq 100 exposure and a written covered call inside of a single structured note. Now, the problem with that is you're going to get credit risk. It's absent from all of the other funds that don't utilize the ELNs. And because of these unsecured bank debts that could decline in value if the issuing bank fails, it's another thing to factor in if you're going to live off of a portfolio of these income ETFs. Now, JEPQ is not in my portfolio, neither is QYLD. And that is simply because they underperform and they're lower risk. I mean, QYLD has its own risk, but JEPQ, I can see investors holding, and that's why it is super, super popular. I do not know why QYLD still has 8 billion in AUM when funds like GPIQ, JEPQ, and QQQI exist. But to each their own. Investors can invest how they want to. This video, of course, is not financial advice. So we've touched on 2 so far. Let's talk about QQQI next. QQQI is what I would say is a more aggressive approach to income investing. It's got a high yield, 13 to 14%, and on top of that, they use a lot of the portfolio for the options. You're not going to get the growth that you would get with something like GPIQ, but that for retirees can be a huge pro. It should be a consistent high yielder. So again, if you don't have a lot of wiggle room within your portfolio to live off of less income, you may need to utilize something that does have more upside when it comes to the yield, but downside in terms of growth and price appreciation. One thing I love about QQQI is what we touched on earlier, return of capital. The 1256 contracts can give you a major tax advantage over something like JEPQ or QYLD. And that's something that a lot of investors are learning now as this stuff is becoming more and more pertinent. A lot of years ago, we weren't really talking about income ETFs the way that we are now. And now we have issuers that are developing more and more skills to help retail investors simply retire and live off of their income without all the crazy huge tax bills and risks and fees. So I absolutely am a huge fan of QQQI, and I do own this one. Now, if you wanted to compare this to JEPQ, I would say it's higher risk, right? It's going to be higher risk than JEPQ, and that's why JEPQ still has such a huge fan base. But I think QQQI, which has grown very quickly, it is the newest out of all the ETFs we're talking about. It has grown very quickly in popularity because of that high yield and because of the performance that we've seen. It is up almost 61% in comparison to the Nasdaq 100's 75%. Not a huge differential there, but on top of that, they have some new funds that do employ leverage that can help you even outperform the underlying with more risk. This is one of the more interesting funds. You can see GPIQ is up 69%, only 6% off of the actual Nasdaq 100. And there's a really interesting tool that they use to make this work. This won't be the best performer in every market. And that's why I do think it's very important to diversify and know everything that we're talking about in this video. So GPIQ, like I mentioned earlier, will flex the amount of coverage within the portfolio. So say the issuer, the team behind writing the options, believes the Nasdaq will be hot over the next couple of months. They will write on less of the portfolio, and that will give them less income, but more upside potential. That will give them more growth. So GPIQ is almost a growth and income fund. But again, you have to trust in the performance of the team. And vice versa. If they thought that the market was going to be sideways or maybe even downtrending, they would utilize more of the portfolio. And it seems from their website that they range from about 25% covered to 75% covered. So they won't ever be as covered as NEOS or QYLD. And that's an interesting factor. But I think this is a really interesting strategy to utilize for someone that is okay with a little bit of a lower yield and does want some growth upside potential. Now, that growth also destroys the argument about NAV erosion for GPIQ because they're not paying out nearly too much to qualify for that NAV erosion. They also have perks like return of capital in a similar way that QQQI does. So each of these investments, each of these ETFs serves a different purpose within your portfolio. And now we're going to break down some time periods where the market was down or sideways and showcase how they perform, because this is a very important thing for you to understand as someone who is going to be living off of or is currently living off of these dividends. Early in 2025, at the end of February, we saw a pretty severe market pullback. The Nasdaq 100 dropped over 23%. You can see right here, it was up 3.15%. And at the end of the drop, it was down 20.34%. Personally, I was buying everything that I could at this time. I love buying on dips, and I wish that I had purchased more, but shoulda, woulda, coulda. Now, what's important to note, though, is during this drop, QQQ was the worst performer. It just had full exposure to the market, of course, and it fell. The income offered a slight buffer. We can see GPIQ also down pretty heavily, JEPQ in the middle, QQQI just behind QYLD. Now, during the rebound, it's a different story. The best performer right out of the gate was QQQI. It didn't have as much of that growth potential, but it still had that high 14% distribution rate. GPIQ started to rebound, but even JEPQ were still outperforming the actual underlying, the Nasdaq 100. QYLD was no longer, simply because it has no upside potential. So this was a very interesting period of time where QQQI did hold up quite nicely. And this is where income investors can have a huge bonus during a down market or a sideways market. If you are relying off of selling part of your income, like the 4% rule, selling part of your portfolio, like the 4% rule, which a lot of investors utilize in retirement, you are still selling during these dips. In comparison with QQQI, if you're living off of the yield has not dropped. You can still live off of it, even with the NAV being down. And that is the pro of income investing. Now, lastly, I want to show you guys a sideways market. It's a very important factor in the market because although we haven't seen sideways trading for quite a long time, it can very well happen again. So now we'll take a look. Here's a really good example. We have July 10th of 2024 to November of 2024, a relatively sideways market. We have some ups and some downs, but it does even out. So we can see QQQ is the worst performer during this time. And this is anticipated because if you're focusing on just the growth side and no income, you will not outperform when the market doesn't do anything. And that's pretty common sense, I would say. QQQI was up a decent amount. We see almost 4%, GPIQ up 3%, JEPQ up 4.26%, and the winner was QYLD up 5.62%. And that is because you're getting more income with, of course, less, absolutely no upside, which is okay because during this time period, there was no upside to be made. So this is a really important video for anyone that is focused in on retiring or who is living off of a portfolio that does include some covered call ETFs. And I hope you guys did find something useful. Don't forget, if you did enjoy this or learn something new, to like the video and to subscribe. It does help me out a bunch, and I hope that this was a good video. If it was, let me know down in the comments. Now, if you like this video, you're gonna love these that are popping up on your screen right now.